Ben Smith is regulatory counsel with NCSEA, an organization I know y'all are familiar with. And one of the things I'd like for you to think about as we move through today, and I will be asking this question in a survey, is whether it might be beneficial for E4 Carolinas and NCSEA to partner together and actually produce this CLE as a single unit. We're exploring that. We don't know that it would work. We think it might to be like a 2-day event where we partner together and just produce it with each other. They have a CLE coming up in February, and we all need more than 7 CLE hours each year. So I encourage you to take a look at their website and their agenda for their CLE in February, because it'll help you get to the mark you need to get to. Ben, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll run your slides for you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bonnie. Hey, everyone. Again, Ben Smith, Regulatory Counsel for the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association. Bonnie, you can go ahead and go to the first slide, or the second slide, I suppose. There we go. Back one. NCSEA is a 501c3 nonprofit membership organization of individuals, businesses, government, and nonprofits interested in North Carolina's sustainable energy future. I always harp on that a little bit because a lot of folks are kind of confused about what exactly we are, what we do. I think everyone on this call, most people I recognize, and I'm guessing most of you are aware of this. So NCSEA drives policy and market development, create clean energy jobs, economic opportunities, and affordable energy benefit to all of North Carolina. We have actually, this year, we are participating in the South Carolina net metering dockets. So we were actually expanding a little bit. I don't think formally and in any sense of the word, after trying to deal with the South Carolina docket, we've been scared off a little bit, but it's been fun to expand a little bit and work with some of you on that. Next slide. Okay, so I only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to keep everything short and sweet. A lot of you have probably heard enough about North Carolina House Bill 589 over the last 3.5 years to fill a book. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. But the idea here is this is sort of regulatory update and sort of where we are now, 3 years after North Carolina House Bill 589 was passed. Enacted in 2017, this is a major policy change for North Carolina. It set the ceiling for standard offer contracts at 1 megawatt, reduced from 5 megawatt, and limits the term on negotiated PPAs to 5 years. There's a give and take here. North Carolina is the #1 PURPA state in the country. We have more PURPA QFs than anywhere else by megawatt, I believe. And that was sort of the rubber hit the road, and there needed to be some give and take on the negotiations of 589. And so we've got this large sort of set of programs that came out of it. One of the programs, Duke Energy, is required to procure 2,660 megawatts of renewable energy over a 45-month period through a process known as this Competitive Procurement of Renewable Energy, CPRE. We'll get back to that in a minute. And it also requires the creation of a program for large businesses or universities and the military to directly procure clean energy. This is the Green Source Advantage program. I wrote Green Source Advantage proposals under review by the Utilities Commission. That's actually not true. It's been passed by the Utilities Commission. This slide is old, sorry. Next slide. All right, some highlights from 589. It allows for at least 200 megawatts of the 10-year standard contract, 1 megawatt or less PURPA QFs, establishes the competitive procurement CPRE program I just referenced, grandfathers at least 3,500 megawatts of legacy PURPA photovoltaic solar, restarts the green tariff for Green Source Advantage as it's become known, formally legalizes leasing of renewable energy systems capped at 1% of Duke's peak demand, which is about 250 megawatts. Interesting fact, leasing was never technically legalized or illegal in North Carolina before that. Creates a solar rebate for rooftop solar, 100 megawatt over 5 years. This has been wildly popular, and also it's been a program that has had lots of ups and downs in terms of the layout, the rollout, the meeting demand, and things like that. So it's basically being litigated, relitigated, and argued over every year of the program. But I don't think anyone participating would disagree that it has increased rooftop solar in North Carolina. On the other hand, 589 created the Community Solar Program. This has not gotten off the ground. Unfortunately, the way that the statute is written is really limited. sort of the ability for this rollout. So we're hoping at NCSEA that in the near future we'll be able to fix this, likely through a legislative fix, but who knows. And then directs the energy storage study. This came out a few years ago. It's great reading. It's over 200 pages though, so highly recommend. It was through through NC State, the Clean Tech Center. Highly recommend reading. And in total, 589 will result in 6,800 megawatts and as much as 7,350 megawatts of solar in Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress' service territories by 2022. A little backstory, if you don't know this, the way that the 589 was drafted was to the investor-owned utilities, the IOUs, at I think over 150,000 customers. I think that was the number. The reason being is they wanted to not require Dominion to be included because Dominion has this small part of northeast North Carolina, and so Dominion wasn't going to be a part of it. And then obviously co-ops and munis. I think it's something like a third of North Carolina residents are in either a co-op or a municipal utility. And so there's there's some good and bad there, but the North Carolina Utilities Commission doesn't have the same oversight there. So we're constantly trying to figure out ways to work with them in the current paradigm. Next slide, please. Okay, so what I was asked to do is kind of give an idea of what the big current ongoing dockets are. And so the first one that came up is the North Carolina Integrated Resource Plan. We're in IRP season. It seems like they're all over the place right now. They're being litigated across the board. I know South Carolina's had some fireworks. North Carolina's IRP process is being visited right now. And Duke and Dominion have filed theirs. Dominion filed theirs way back in May. They filed theirs on May 1st to match when they filed in Virginia because the balancing territories for Virginia, North Carolina, Dominion territories overlap and they just do them together. The Duke utility territories, Progress and Carolinas filed theirs on September 1st. I'll stick mostly with the Duke one because it's more at issue, so to speak, in North Carolina. So what's notable here is that in 2018, Duke filed an IRP. That IRP was partially granted, and it was only granted for 2 years. It's a 15-year planning window, and traditionally, or typically, I should say, it seems like the commission, they might toggle it a little bit, but they give the utilities an okay for that 15-year planning window. And in 2018, the commission said, no, we're just going to do 2 years of okay, and after that, you need to come back and show us a different plan that more caters to some of these issues that we see. So Duke, Carolinas, and Progress go and put their heads down, and they come back with a really interesting, frankly, plan with 6 different planning portfolios to take into account state and stakeholder energy needs. And these 6 portfolios are a base case without carbon policy, a base case with a carbon policy, the case with the earliest practical coal retirements. The next, which was matching some of the state carbon goals, is a 70% carbon reduction with a high wind resource. And the next one, which really caught some eyes, was the 70% carbon reduction with a high SMR resource. A lot of people learned all of a sudden what SMRs were. And then finally, the last one was no new gas generation portfolio. I will, as regulatory for counsel for the NCSEA, I would certainly applaud Duke's attempts to meet some of the clean energy goals of the state. I don't think there's any way you can slice it and say they didn't try to do that. So to support the IRP filings, Duke conducted numerous studies on coal retirements, resource adequacy, the reserve margin. Reserve margin is essentially the ability to back up your system. If you didn't know, I'm really shortchanging that explanation, but the storage load carrying capability, energy efficiency and market potential, and winter-specific distributed resource rate design benchmarking study. So one of the big things in North Carolina is that these winter peaks. So Duke has a winter peak issue that, for instance, our large solar resource can't necessarily match. So when you look at rate design and they have to match this winter peak, how do you do it in winter mornings? What do you do? People say batteries, people say, this, that, and the other thing. And so that's what a challenge currently for North Carolina is that they're trying to meet. The commission has recognized that, and so they require Duke to go out and do a number of studies and sort of try and figure that question out. Next slide. Okay, and then what else is going on? The avoided cost docket. Avoided cost is the avoided cost of energy that a utility would otherwise be paying for, but they're procuring from a third party, oftentimes a PERPA QF. And this is pursuant to Section 210 of PERPA. And also in North Carolina, there's a statute 62-156, which requires the NCUC to determine the rates to be paid by electric utilities for power purchased from small power producers as defined by 62-3. Basically, PERPA QFs, which can include solar, hydro, some other things. Avoided costs is typically a huge deal in North Carolina. As I've said now a few times, North Carolina is the leading state for PERPA QF solar development. But at the utility's request this year, the 2020 avoided costs will be a quote-unquote off year, where the utilities will present updates to already approved methodologies on certain subjects. So typically every 2 years, they sort of update the methodologies and sort of try and reflect what the current market is for. They look at gas forecasts and things like that to try and determine what the cost of energy is. Well, this year, because after last year's IRP, after the 2018 IRP and after the 2018 avoided cost, where the commission gave Duke a whole bunch of homework assignments, Duke said, listen, we're trying to get these homework assignments done. We're having trouble getting them done. One of the things that Duke was able to get in the 2018 avoided cost was something called the Solar Integration Services Charge, which is an additional cost to PERPA QFs. And it's supposed to pay for sort of intermittency costs, the type of ancillary services required to back up solar or to keep solar firm. And so because of that kind of new cost, the commission allowed that SISC, as we call it for short. We don't have enough acronyms, am I right? The commission said, okay, but we also need you to have a third party come in and review this. And so they did, and the Duke tried to find a sort of unbiased third party, and they had trouble finding a national party. They're now working with the public staff, amongst others, to sort of coordinate this. But effectively what happened is Duke was given a 1 year extension where they basically swapped. So this year is an update year again. As a practical matter, it's actually kind of nice, I think, for everyone in the North Carolina Energy Bar, because having to litigate both avoided cost and the IRP at the same time is a lot of work. We still have to litigate avoided cost because there's still input assumptions that need to be discussed for the models that Duke's presented on, because they're still asking, I think they've estimated about a 2% decrease in the cost of energy for the avoided cost. So we'll still have some litigation, but it won't be quite as robust as normal. Okay, next slide. And then last slide, the other regulatory matters. Notable to me, and probably I'm sure I'm missing some, the Friesian decision, which is a CPCN decision, where the commission determined that based upon largely what the North Carolina Public Staff said was, within their jurisdiction to disallow a CPCN between NCEMC and a solar developer, but it was going to be in a Duke territory. So Duke ratepayers were going to have to pay for upgrades. And so there's jurisdictional issues, other interesting legal arguments that are in here. Briefs are due in early February in that appeal. And that's going to be something I would recommend folks keep their eye on. SEEM, the Southeast Energy Marketplace. Again, I'm sure people have heard a lot about this. Duke has recently filed a notice to the NCUC about this overlay marketplace. I suspect there'll be more to talk about in that in the near future. 2020 rate case orders. You all probably heard we had a couple of rate cases in 2020. They were a whole lot of fun. But we are waiting on the rate case orders from the NCUC. We've also just received a North Carolina Supreme Court decision on the 2018 rate case order appeals. And in the 2018, the basic issues at appeal were the fixed charge, residential fixed charge, and coal ash fixed charge. They allowed what the commission determined should be the fixed charge. Coal ash, it's a little bit muddier, and it's like a 200 page opinion, so you can read that for more coal ash if you're interested in that. Rooftop solar rebate, as I said, still ongoing, and there's many, many, many more things going on. So feel free to contact me offline. I went 3 minutes over. I apologize. Bye.
No problem, Ben. And I loved your pun of the coal ash being muddy. That situation being, I don't know that you meant that, but it was very
unintentional.
So thank you so much, Ben. We called this the highlights. It kind of reminds me of Casey Kasem's top 40. We are just like hitting all of this stuff very briefly. You do have the slides, and we certainly recommend you refer to your slides for additional information. I had hoped to include in my update commission-related activity as well, and honestly, I was not able to do that after I took a look at how many energy-related bills have been pre-filed for our next legislative session. So I wanted to focus primarily on the legislative activity because I do think most of us on this call are familiar with what's going on over at the commission. As Ben said, please feel free to contact me or him offline if you have any questions about where things are with different dockets at the SC, PSC, or the NCUC. I am going to highlight some stuff for the General Assembly in South Carolina, which convenes in January for a 2-year session. They will adjourn in May, which really is more like a recess because the same members will be holding over, the same bills will be holding over, and they will pick back up right where they left off in January of 2022. Our legislature is 170 members. There are several important committees to energy and utility related legislation. So there's a lot of different places that we need to look in order to see what is taking place over at the State House. I've listed them here, and you can refer to them on your slide. I am going to go ahead and do this quick hit of there were almost 1,000 bills pre-filed on either December 9th or December 16th for the upcoming legislative session. I searched for the word energy and I searched for the word utility. And so this is what I found. It probably includes everything that is of note, but I will tell you, there could have been something that I missed by virtue of using those two search factors. So I will submit it to you with that caveat. Don't take this as the end all be all of what you may want to take a look at. I start with the Senate. I was former Senate staff, so I tend to be Senate centric. And I also will note that the Senate is where most things tend to get hosed up. There's, like it is in DC, the House will adopt things and things will get stalled in the Senate. So I just tend to start with the Senate because if you see something moving in the Senate, then it's fairly likely it'll move on through the whole process. Senator Kramer has introduced a bill. There's a companion bill in the House as well related to siting of wind energy facilities, simply to add those to whom notice should be received for such siting. There's a bill in the Medical Affairs Committee about pyrolysis, and that it's I think been introduced before. There's Senator Clymer from Rock Hill. We are seeing as he is maturing in his interest in energy, and he has introduced some bills related to EVs, which we actually, I want to ask him, I'm curious if this one didn't come to his attention as he participated in our policy series that was mentioned there. So I think that might be something that you can watch, and it may get some movement to make sure that people who sell electric utility or electricity for EV charging are not actually considered an electric utility. He has another bill related to electric vehicles, also in Senate Judiciary. And then Senator Massey, who is the majority member in the Senate, has a bill to authorize basically securitization of weather-related costs and, interestingly, abandonment of a project, costs related to an abandonment of a project. So that's an interesting one to watch, and I think a lot of us are interested in securitization. It's been something that's been talked about for a while. Senator Massey, as the majority leader in the Senate, I think that indicates it might get some attention. In Judiciary, there's also a bill to affect the election for the natural gas fuel rate stabilization process. I'm not entirely sure what Senator Young's interest is in this regard, but he certainly is interested in it, so take a look at that. And I thought this one was interesting. Clymer has a couple of water utility related bills. Again, he is showing himself as an active member when it comes to utility related matters, not just energy, but water as well. And one of the bills would require an IRP of water utilities, which is new. And I thought that that was just, it's of interest to the energy bar because we are so familiar with those processes for electric utilities. Moving along, there were some bills related to, I think, COVID impacts related to rates. You'll see this one here, Senate Bill 344, about the process whereby you can seek an increase in electric rates and to suspend that during a state of emergency. And down here, Senator Fanning has a bill related to electric cooperatives and municipalities that it appears would bring them under the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission, which I think is interesting. There's been a little bit of talk about that over the last few years, and we'll see where it goes. There is a bill to break the Department of Health and Environmental Control into two different agencies. This really wouldn't impact, obviously, regulatory activity, but it would impact some environmental related activity, which of course is tangent to energy related activity. And it would move environmental responsibilities to the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So two different entities. So I'm interested to see more detail. I've pulled the titles of these bills. I have not looked at the full text of these bills, but it can make things a little challenging when you're citing something. We've been required to notify DHEC in terms of environmental, and this would kind of send things to two different places that DHEC has done previously. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. And it's Senator Peeler is the Senate President Pro Tem, and I think this one will probably get some attention as well. And then there is a bill in the Senate. There's also one in the House that would prohibit utilities from accepting prohibit candidates from accepting political contributions from utilities. Would basically amend the Ethics Act. And then there is a bill related to petroleum pipeline siting, which is, there's a companion in the House as well. This is one to watch in terms of eminent domain and citing processes overall. It certainly would not impact utilities directly, but it's got some corollaries, and so I think we ought to keep an eye on that one. A bill Senator Young's introduced as well that would prohibit the disclosure of customer information to third parties without the express consent of that customer. I think reaction to some things that had taken place over the last year or so, and more of a consumer-focused bill than a process-focused bill. We move along to the House, and there are a number of bills in the House as well. Some income tax credit interest from Representative Cobb Hunter for solar energy property. There's another bill later in the list that would also apply this to renewable energy. So again, I haven't taken a look at the text of these bills, but those are of interest. Many efforts have been made to move tax credits forward in prior years. I've been a part of those, and we have not had tremendous success. So it'll be interesting to see what occurs with these. Of course, matters related to Santee Cooper remain foremost for some members of the legislature. This one is interesting because it has the Speaker's sponsorship, the Speaker of the House, Speaker Lucas, and it would authorize the sale of Santee Cooper. Of course, we're familiar that this has been an ongoing conversation in both the House and the Senate, and outside the State House as well. So this one I expect to get some interest and some movement pretty early, so keep an eye on that one in particular. And moving along to, I think this is my last slide. This is a handful of other bills. Again, the renewable energy tax credit bill there, the bill 3204 by Representative Smith related to wind siting. I did not actually fully describe that here. I apologize, but I just referred you back to the Senate bills. That's a companion to that wind facility siting bill. Consumer related interest here from Representative King related to interruptions in service and the charge by third parties who accept utility payments on behalf of the utility, prohibiting them from charging an additional fee. Again, here the companion 3527 to petroleum pipeline siting that we saw in the Senate, and a companion as well for the political contributions from utilities. Okay, so 929, I was able to do it. I'm sorry if that felt fast. It was fast, but I did not want to spill over into the time given to our next panel. So again, I'll remind you, you have this slide deck. Come back, take a look at this list of bills. www.scstatehouse.gov is where you can find them all. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And it may not be there might be something I missed. So just keep that in mind.